Hello everyone, this is Catherine Waite. Today we are on part 2A where we are adding fractions without common denominators. We left off on our last video, part 1, where we were adding fractions with common denominators. Just to review, our last two problems where you add only when you have common denominators, you always add across, and you only add the numbers in the numerator. So 2 plus 4 is 6, and we simply rewrite the common denominator. And it's very important, if you can simplify a fraction, then you need to do it. I know that that 6 goes into both 6 and 12. I divide both numerator and denominator by 6, and 6 divided by 6 is 1, 12 divided by 6 is 2. This is my fully simplified fraction, and that is my answer. So, moving on to today, to this video, we are adding fractions without common denominators. Alright, so the first problem that we are going to do, number 1, is 1/9 plus 1/3. So, as you'll notice, we have 1/9 and 1/3. There are not 9 and 3 are not the same number, therefore we do not have common denominators. So, before we start adding, we have to find a way to get common denominators. So, the way we do that is we are going to multiply both the numerator and the denominator of this fraction by 3. And I'll show you the reason in a second. Alright? So, if I do this, I'm going to rewrite this part after I multiply. So 1/9 plus what we now have here is 1 times 3 is 3, and 3 times 3 is 9. So, going back to this step, what I had to do is come up with a way to make these denominators the same. So what I did is I knew that I could create an equivalent fraction, meaning the same fraction, but change it up so that it would have a common denominator. So I knew if I multiplied 3 by 3, I would get 9, and what adjustment I made to the denominator, I also need to do to the numerator. So that is the extra part when adding without common denominators. So now that we are here, we are back to where we were in part 1, where we have our common denominators, we add across, and we only add the numbers in the numerator. So this will end up being 4/9. So now I gotta check. Is there any way in which I can simplify this? There is not. There is no number that 4 and 9 can both be divided by. There is no same number. Alright, moving on to number 2. Our next problem is 1/2 plus 2/4. Alright, once again, we do not have common denominators, but just as we did up here, we can do some multiplication. So, 2 and 4 obviously are not the same number, but I can multiply 2 by the number 2, and that will get me to the number 4. What I do to the denominator, I also must do to the numerator. Okay? What I do to the denominator, I must do to the numerator. Okay? So, now that we've done that, I rewrite it now, and I have here 1 times 2 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. And then I copy down the second fraction. Okay, now that I have that, once again, I have my common denominators. Then I go back to the basics. I add across, and I only add the numbers in the numerator. So, once I've done that, I have 2 plus 2 is 4, and I copy here my original denominator. But, hopefully as you notice right now, the question that I always have to ask is, can I simplify this anymore? If you look at this, you're going to see that 4 and 4 are the same number, and quite simply, one way you could look at it is just knowing the math. 4 divided by 4 is equal to 1. Or there's other ways you could think of it, but I would just stick to the straightforward way of knowing 4 divided by 4 is 1. Okay, there's no need to make it too complicated. Alrighty, so once again, we checked and made sure that we simplified it here. There was no need to simplify it up here, but now we've done 2 and we got 2 more. Alright, number 3. Okay, our next problem is 3 halves plus 2 tenths. Alrighty, so 3 halves and 2 tenths. As I'm sure, just like the other problems you've already noticed, we do not have common denominators. So I know that 2 times 5 can get me to 10. What I do to the numerator or the denominator, I also do to the numerator. Okay, I multiply numerator and denominator by the same number. And once I do that, I carry on and do the math once again. 3 times 5 is 15. 2 times 5 is 10. And then plus, I copied on this second fraction, which is 2 tenths. And here we have it. Once again, we have the common denominator. So, like I've said every single time, we add across and we add only the numbers in the numerator. Okay, so 15 plus 2 is 17. And the common denominator is 10. Alright, some teachers may say that you need to convert this into a mixed fraction, but being a high school teacher, I would say to my students, you can leave it as it is unless the problem asks you to put the fraction as a mixed fraction. So you can choose whichever way you want to do it. However, I would just go along with what your math teacher asks you to do. So, number 4, the final problem for this video. Okay, number 4, we will have 1/12 plus 2/3. Alrighty. So, just like the others, I can see that I do not have common denominators. So, I look to this 3 and I know that there's a relationship here, and if I multiply 3 by 4, I can get to 12. Alright, and I know if I multiply the denominator by 4, I must also multiply the numerator. This is so important. You must multiply the numerator and denominator by the same number. So, once again, rewrite. Okay, 1/12. 1/12, alright, is, and this is why we write in pencil, so we can rewrite it so it looks nice. 1/12 plus 2 times 4 is 8, and that's divided by 12. Okay, so now that we have that, like I've said every single time, add across and add only the numbers in the numerator. So that's going to leave me with 9 twelfths. Okay? And as I hope you've already done on your paper, you can tell that 9 and 12 can be simplified. 9 twelfths can be simplified because we know that the number 3 goes into both 9 and 12. Alrighty, so if I do the math and I simplify, I know 9 divided by 3 is going to give me 3, and 12 divided by 3 is going to give me 4. Alright, and this is how you add fractions without common denominators. Okay, see you next video.